Hey, another Spring Boot video for you. In this video, I'll show you how to connect your Spring Boot application to a Postgres database, step by step using Spring Data JPA Starter. This is one of the most common setup in real-world backend development. Postgres is powerful, open source, and widely used on production environments. And when paired with Spring Boot, it gives you a fast and scalable backend stack. Let's get started. So the first thing we need to do is to add the dependency of the Spring Data JPA starter and the PostgreSQL driver, right? We can do that manually, or we can simply use Spring Initializer. I will use this default setup, maybe in Java 3.5.3. Let me just rename that. PG, like Postgres, okay. Okay, jar 17 is enough. Let me add, so then JPA, Spring Data JPA, cool. Here we can also have the Postgres driver, Postgres SQL driver here. And by the way, I will add as well the Spring Web just to expose a simple REST API for us to see, like we creating and retrieving resources through REST API. And I will generate that right now. So cool, I just generated and imported the project into my IntelliJ. This is a regular Spring Boot application with nothing different. Let's just try to run that to see what happens. Oh, it didn't work. What happened? Failed to configure data source. URL attribute is not specified and no embedded data source could be configured. So this is kind of frustrating, right? We just generate the project from the bootstrap from Spring Initializer and it doesn't work, right? It sucks, kind of, because actually before running, we need to, as we added the Spring Data JPA starter into our application, we need to say to Spring how to connect the database, like passing the URL, username, and password for that database. This kind of situation, it makes part of the concept of auto configuration from Spring Boot. So in this case, and also fail fast. Okay, so the default behavior of the Spring Data JPA starter is to try to connect to a database during the startup of the application and fail fast in case it can't connect. So this is what's happening right now. So in order to solve that, we need to set some attributes for the Spring Data starter, Spring Data JPA starter. To be more contract, I will just say Spring Data, okay? But whenever I say Spring Data, you can understand that Spring Data JPA starter, okay? We need to set up some attributes here. So this is the URL, this is the username, this is the password, driver, class name. I will get into these in a minute. Just a few callouts here, and this is very important, so please pay attention on it. This Spring dot whatever, these are like pre-made attributes, so the starter are expecting exactly these keys. If you, for example, instead of password, I would say spring.datasource.pass, it wouldn't work. Okay, it's not up to you who define the keys here, as we are using Spring-based attributes, so we need to match exactly. Another very ultra important callout here is that this is just a simple, very simple example how to connect to a database. And you should not never, in any case, set password and username like this. You shouldn't like store the credentials in any type of source code, including Java classes or resources, application.properties, JSONs, whatever. So again, this is not for production. You should not, even if you're not deploying to production, the important thing here is not to commit this file with the credentials, okay? I can make a video about how to use like the regular way, the right way, using secrets manager for AWS, for example, or vote from HashiCorp or whatever. And by the way, leave a comment if you think this is a good idea to have a video like this, and tell me which tool you want to see in action and to integrate with Spring Boot in order to grab the credentials during the startup and connect to the database. Let me know, write a comment, and I will read it carefully, okay? Okay, so this is basically the URL, username and password, the driver class name, nothing new here. These ones here, so Spring JPA Hibernate DDL Auto. Another call out here. This is dangerous. Okay, again, this is a very simple example that we're going to run only local, so it's okay. But in real world, you do not use things like that. You can use even on the real world, but during the development only. But you should be careful to not forget this set this way, because by setting by create drop, whenever the application initializes, Spring Data JPA started. Spring Data will get your entities defined and will try to update the structure of your database with that entities structure. So you get your Java code and update the database, the Postgres database, the schema, in order to match with the entity you defined. And it is create drop. And whenever the application is shutting down, guess what? It drops your schema. So be careful, okay? Do not forget that. My advice is to use that very carefully and just during the initial development phase. And whenever you get your schema like stable, get rid of it, okay? Stop using that at all. Show SQL is just to print the SQL that Hibernate is making into our database. And this is just to format the SQL, like instead of having a single string like this big, you have like select, new line, the columns, one column by line, and so on, like a format, right? Formatted SQL. About the DDL Auto, it has another options that we can take a look here. As regular, for this video, I also have a post on my blog. I will leave the description right down. I will leave the link right down below on the description, and it has this table. So create drops and recreate the schema on the startup. Create drop, same as create, but also drops on the shutdown. Update tries to automatically alter the schema. Validate, verify the schema matches entity mappings. This is great. Okay, this is really great. No action, you manage the schema. I believe this is default. I think so, like 99% sure. It doesn't make sense to have these as default, for example. Okay, yeah, just for prototype, not for production at all. And by the way, for a production environment, I strongly suggest going with a high-level migration tool like Flyway and Liquibase, or going with a totally manual and separate approach. Trust me, it's really easy to make a mess by using DDL Auto, like setting by. And by the way, let me know in the comments if you think like it would be great to have a video using high-level migration tools like Flyway and Liquibase. And let me know as well if you don't even know what it is, what this kind of tool does. I can explain in a video, and I think it would be very useful, but please let me know, comment whatever you think. So the next step we need to do is just to set up a Docker container. Obviously, if you have Postgres installed on your machine, you can skip this step, but nowadays we all use Docker, right? So you can simply copy this from here as I did, and then paste it here, and it created the container. I can see the container running now. So we set a password like my user, password my password, db my db, which matches exactly what we have here. So I think this way the application should be able to start. Let's try. So yeah, as we can see, the application has started successfully. Okay. So the next thing we need to do is to define our entity, right? Order, which is an order. Just a recap. So entity is a table definition using Java class. Okay, so basically, whatever the attributes we define here on this class, it will be mapped as a column on the database. Okay, so here we have the entity annotation just to tell Hibernate and JPA that this is an entity. Okay, the table here, the table annotation is just to pass some data, some table definition you might have. And here we have the ID annotation, which tells the persistence layer, the JPA Hibernate, that this attribute in specific is the primary key of our table. The generated value, generated generation type identity, basically creates a sequence, okay, which generates the next primary key, okay, like an auto increment in MySQL, I guess. So here we have a description column. We often have the column attribute, and if we want to pass a different name to the column, we can have like order description. Okay, so in this case, the table will be created with the column order description, not description. But in our case, I would leave just as the default. If you don't specify, it will get the name of the attribute itself. It is really important, as usual, to have the getter and setter, and that's basically it. So just a recap: by defining an entity, whenever the application starts, it will take a look on all entities defined by this annotation and create the corresponding table using the table definition you pass here with the columns attributes that you define here. Okay, that's pretty much it. The next thing we need to do is to define a repository, and by that we're going to create order repository, not a class but an interface, and then extends the JPA repository, which is a generic which expects two types. The first one is the type of your entity, and the second one is the type of the primary key of your entity. Just to double check, let's take a look on it. So the order is our entity, and the long here is the type of our primary key. If we're going to use integer, which I strongly do not suggest, because long is way bigger than integer, right? So here we should pass integer. Oh, integer. Okay, so this is basically the type of your primary key. And basically that, by extending JPA repository, we gain a lot of useful methods out of the box with no implementation required, like find by ID, find all, find, and whatever the name you pass in the method, it will be like the query on the database. We can take a look in a second. I can get back on it in a second. But before that, let's finish our basic example by defining a controller. Order controller. So here, nothing new. REST controller listening on /orders. The order repository we just defined, but but having it injected here by Spring using our constructor. If you are not familiar with dependency injection or have some questions regarding it, I will leave a card of another video about dependency injection, when to use field injection like with Autoroid, when to use setter injection, and when to use the constructor injection. Take a look on it and then get back here if you don't know yet. Let me just import it here. Cool. So here, nothing new, just a get mapping and a post mapping, request body, and that's it. Another callout here, actually another card here, is about DTOs. In real world, we usually do not return and receive our entities directly. It can causes you a lot of problems, so we often use DTOs. So if you don't know about it, if you don't know what it is and why to use and how to use, take a look on this video as well. So this is basically just a find all. Remember the method I said, like, we don't have the definition of a find all method here, but it can cause a find all here, right? So this is earned by JPA repository interface, which also extends, I think, this CRUD repository, which has the find all and find all by ID as well. Okay. So let's take a look if it works. Cool. It started the application and it printed some logs here. So, okay, some meta information here. So drop table if exists orders cascade. So orders is from our entity here, orders. Okay. So here create table orders. The definition is int big ID big int, which is long for us, generated by default as identity. Description, which is our description column, varchar 2555, and set the ID as the primary key. So if we take a look, here the password, sorry, I didn't explain right. So docker exec is just to execute a command on the container. The -it is just the iterative mode, just to not the container execute that in the background, but to execute during your terminal. My Postgres is the container name, and then here is the command we are passing. So PSQL is just the Postgres command line, -u is the user, lower d is the database name, -w, and as you see, I just typed that and didn't pass an argument because it's the password which is required right after. We do that just to avoid exposing your secret. So here I am connected. So let me just connect to, in fact, the database. Again, my password. Okay, I can take a look on the tables now, and we have the table orders here. I can describe the table orders, which is not good. Let me just do this. Not good as well. Let me disable this. Let me just extend this. Okay, now it's good. So it has an ID, the definition, right? Which is also not new. And this is basically the definition we saw on the logs here, right? And the description, varchar 255 and nullable, and the definition of the primary key. Okay, so it is sounding pretty cool. So here is basically a CRUD, right? Sending a post request to /orders, passing a payload, as JSON, right? The description order 1, and then it returns us that it created an ID 1, order 1. Let's just take a look like curl HTTP localhost 88 orders. This way it will run a GET request, and it has that one, right? Now let's change it a little bit just to create another one. Let's create the order 2, and then let's take it, and yeah, we have the order 2 as well with ID 2. Just to confirm, let's get back to our database and make a select into our orders table, and we can see both orders here. So this is pretty cool. This is basically how we can connect our Spring Boot with Postgres database. It's pretty easy, as you can see, just by defining the correct resources attributes, here on the application properties, by defining our model. Model is the very core of the Spring Data JPA. Okay, by that you can do everything, not like defining the repository and then the service. And by the way, I call out here again, as this is a very simple example. I injected the repository directly on the controller, but in the real world we are not going to do that. We are going to have a service layer which will be in the middle between the controller and the repository layers. Okay, so by that we can make the queries whatever we want. Let me just, as promised, let me get back to here to the repository and define a custom method. So here we can have like a list of order and name the method as find by description starts with description. So this without any concrete implementation, just by defining the method on the interface. Spring Data JPA can generate the SQL based on the name of the method we are passing here. So by using a find by, Spring Data understands that this is a select operation. Description is the name of our attribute on our entity. Okay, obviously it needs to match exactly, like description wouldn't work. It starts with, it's like thing that we can make the like operation this way, like whatever, you know, like this. So this method would generate a SQL statement like this. So select all from orders where description like the parameter, okay, the description percentage. Okay, by this semicolon description I mean whatever we pass here. If you are not sure how to create this, you can ask AI. AI would create that for you very easily. So we can ask it here, like another get mapping public list of order find by description starts with here. The name of the method on the controller, it doesn't matter, you can name whatever you want. And let me just have like description. This is not REST, okay, it's just an example. Path variable description, and then we can have a return repository find by description starts with description. Let's take a look if it works. Orders and slash orders, I think still working okay. as we drop it, as we shut down the application and create it again, do remember the create drop. So that's why our database is empty right now. Let me duplicate that and create a post, and then we can have description order 1. Let me do this order 1 and order 2. Okay, and now we are going to have these here. So now we can try something like that, order on 1, and we will get just the 1, right? And if we change for 2, it will get that because it starts with, right? With we do like something like this, it will get both. So this is how you connect your Spring Boot application to a Postgres database. I hope you enjoyed this video as much as I did. And in case if you want to evolve your career and create Spring Boot apps like a pro, you should take a look on my Mastering Spring Boot Project Structure free ebook, which is, the link is in the description right down below, to learn to structure your Spring Boot applications like professional developers does. So yeah, that's all for today's video. I see you on the next one. As usual, hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, hit the bell icon, and see you on the next one. Bye bye.